You're listening to Thunder Quack Podcast Network. This is the Thunder Quack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunder Quack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunder Quack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunder Quack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com, which you can get early every Tuesday over at patreon.com/thunderquack, just like our Patreon producers Brian Moreski and JJ Samuel. Or you can wait and get it late every Friday on podcast services across the galaxy. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Conkin.
And we are recording this on Monday, November the 2nd, 2020. It is currently 9:43 p.m. And which actually it's like 10:43 p.m. because of the time change, the daylight savings such and such. So that's probably why I feel so tired. But the reason why I point all of that out is because tomorrow all hell is going to break loose, and so you're either listening to this as that's happening, or after it has already happened. So
you're living in a beautiful, brave new world in which all of your dreams have come true, hopefully. And in which democracy has proven to be, for the first time in history, a successful system. Because let me just say, how modern is democracy? I don't think people understand how modern democracy is and how flawed. Anyways, but I can only talk so much, so let's pepper in the politics throughout, because I can't just like.
Oh, the whole point is that we're not going to talk about it because
we don't know. We don't know what's going on.
By the time that you're listening to this, it's irrelevant.
And let this be a reprieve from the apocalypse for you while you listen to us talk about awesome nerdy things. Yeah.
Now, if you do want to hear us talk about the doom and gloom, then you needed to be subscribed at the $5 level or the $10 level or above to get the uncut episode, which you would have gotten on Tuesday morning, and then you could hear me talk for almost half an hour about what's happening and what the likely outcomes are, and see if I was right or wrong. I don't know. Time will tell. But instead, we're just going to talk about, I don't know, Star Wars probably.
Mostly Star Wars, but also it's a recap from Halloween, because I felt like I watched a lot of spoopy stuff this Halloween. And my sister, it was so funny. She's in a group because she's gonna come to join us in Tofino, and so she's in a group with my friends. And so I was saying, like, we're gonna watch spoopy movies, and she because she was at my house before I came, and she's like, why did you say spoopy? What is spoopy? What does that even mean? And I'm kind of like, like cute spooky. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think spoopy is? Because to me, it's like not spooky or scary. It's like spoop. So like Beetlejuice, I feel is like a spoopy movie.
Or Hocus Pocus, So
the spoopy movie that I watched this weekend that I didn't realize until I was watching it that I'd never seen before was the Addams Family.
So you have to be really clear. Yeah. The first live action Addams Family film.
Correct. Yeah, not the animated film that just came out, but like straight up the one with like oh my gosh, the Back to the Future dude and
Christopher Lloyd,
Angelica Houston,
Raul Julia,
and Wednesday Addams, Christina Ricci.
Yep.
Like awesome. I don't know, just because it's permeated popular culture so much, I just had assumed that I had watched it, and I was watching it, and I was like, oh, nope. Like I didn't know. I mean, spoilers for the Addams Family, I guess, if you've never seen that movie. But, like, I straight up didn't know, because I knew that Lester was the uncle, but I didn't know... Fester. Okay, well, but I didn't know that the plot of the first movie was him like pretending to not be the uncle. So I'm like, maybe I've seen the second one.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like maybe because I'm like surely I've seen the Addams Family, but it just straight up
you may have seen the second one, because the second one I sort of just ignores the fact that he's not actually Fester.
But I thought he was. I thought, isn't that like the thing at the end that he actually is Fester?
No, I don't think so. That wasn't. But we just watched it a little while ago. That wasn't really my read.
I thought like the whole thing is that he actually was who they thought he was. He had literally 25 years ago actually been found, and he actually was the guy that like he got lost in the Bermuda Triangle.
Maybe. I think that he just gets like banged around and shocked and electrocuted enough that he just thinks that.
No, because he knew the dance. Because basically they were explaining it to me like the like Mamushka dance or whatever it is.
Yep.
That it's like he remembers that because he's the brother.
I'm gonna look this up.
I'm like
Fester.
I think that's the whole point, is that he like is pretending to be the brother,
the real Fester, and
then he actually turns into the real brother. And it's like turns out that he actually is the real brother, and that's the twist.
Okay, yeah, no. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't. This is just from Wikipedia. In the movie The Addams Family, Fester, played by Christopher Lloyd, is the long lost brother of Gomez Addams. It is later discovered that Gordon is actually Fester, found by Abigail. His accident has caused him to suffer from amnesia, which is eventually cured by a lightning strike to his head.
There you go. Yeah.
I feel like there's a little bit of wiggle room. It's a little open to interpretation, but that's fine. In the second one, is a summer movie. It's about like the kids go to summer camp, and and I think somebody tries to woo Fester. I think that's
see, that's the thing. I think I remember watching that because I remember that. Like, that's my memory of Fester, is him trying to have a girlfriend, or somebody like is trying to like that's why I always just thought he was the uncle. And then it was watching this one where I'm like, so that's what makes me think that I've watched the second one. But anyways, that was kind of fun because usually I wasn't even watching it. Like, I came in late because my friends were just watching it on the TV, and I was like, oh, Addams Family. And then I started watching it. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what's happening.
I'm looking at IMDb as we're talking about this, and realizing that this is ridiculous. That Carol Kane, who people might recognize she's the landlord in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. She plays the grandmother in. Was she in the first one? Did she play that character in the first one as well? The granny,
she's just a character actor, so that makes sense. Am I thinking of the wrong person? I might be thinking of the wrong person. Because I don't really watch Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. What's her name? Carol Kane.
Yeah, she's a character actor. Like you would recognize her. Is she in the first one? Maybe she's somebody else in the first one. Played by somebody else in the first one. It's played by a different actor in the first one. That makes more sense. Because Addams Family Values is definitely on the list of movies to watch, but I was like, wow, they did a lot of makeup on her to get her to look that old. Anyways, I love Addams Family.
She's in Addams Family Values.
She's not in the first one though. It's a different
is Addams Family Values a different one?
It's the sequel. Yeah, that's the sequel.
So yes, I think I've seen Addams Family Values because I just thought that was the name of it. I didn't realize that it was different.
No, the first one was just the Addams Family, and then Addams Family Values is the sequel. Gotcha. The other main thing is that they have a baby, right? That they because that's like at the very end of the movie. Okay. Which is a big deal at the time because so people who don't know, Addams Family started as a comic strip kind of like it's kind of like a really dark version of Family Circus, you know, like it's like the one panel, like the kid has broken a toy and then has some really precocious caption at the bottom about the economics in Guatemala or something, and you're like, ha ha, that's funny. I don't like Family Circus. Addams Family it wasn't even Addams Family when it started. They were just comics by the illustrator. Oh man, how am I blanking on his name right now? But he just has this really dark sense of humor, and this like started in the 1930s. So at the time, it wasn't even like it's not even like nowadays it's like silly, I don't know, like Hot Topic type humor, right? Like everybody like would associate Addams Family with like Tim Burton and Hot Topic and all of that sort of thing, like the
I hear that
commercialized goth, right? But at the time in the 1930s, like in 1935, when these comic strips were originally being published, like they were controversial because it was like this really dark humor, like dealing with death and dealing with a lot of really like morbid subjects that most artists didn't go anywhere near. And eventually it evolved into the Addams Family. Like it's sort of as he drew these characters over and over again, they eventually like they got names and there became like a continuity within it. And then it was a TV show in, I think, the 1950s, black and white, right? And then just kind of like disappeared for a while. And then this movie was like a big deal, because it was like, oh, they're making an Addams Family movie based on the TV show, based on the comic strip. And most of the gags in the first movie, one of the reasons why it feels kind of weird and disjointed, is because most of the humor are like one for one, like scenes from the comics, like from the original source material. So like the way that the movie opens with the carolers, and then they're pouring the boiling oil on them, right?
I mean, I came in like just a little bit like right at the beginning, but sort of like
that's like the opening of the movie. It's like the cold open is that like there's these carolers caroling at their
boiling
door.
oil on them. Oh
and they're on the roof and they're pouring a cauldron of boiling oil on them, which is what you would do to invaders. You know, like if you had a castle, right? Yeah. It is literally like one of the earliest comics for the Addams Family is them standing on the top of their house and pouring boiling oil on carolers. So it's like there are a bunch of different moments in the movie that are literally lifted from individual comic strip panels. So that's why it kind of at times feels like this isn't really a part of anything. This is just almost like a vignette inside the movie. That's because they're paying a lot of homage to that. The end of the movie when Morticia reveals that she's pregnant with a third kid, there's no third kid in the comics. There's no third kid in the original TV series. There was a TV series in the 90s after this movie was really popular. But like there was no third kid. And so that was them sort of like putting their stamp on it of we're continuing the story, right? So then when Addams Family Values came out, it was like that was a lot of original stuff. It was sort of them, and it's and in my opinion, it's like it's a much stronger story. Although I really like the Addams Family movie, like the first movie. But it is a little bit like, okay, we're kind of all over the place. And like the third act is really weird in that movie, but Addams Family Values is a little bit more cohesive. But the recent animated one is super good. It's really, really well done. And
That's
I wish
awesome. That was done in Vancouver, man.
I wish that it would get a sequel. I don't know that it will, because it did not do well. But
I mean, I don't think it did terrible. It did okay for animated films. Like,
yeah,
there's like a different standard for
you say that, but animated films usually make a lot more money than a regular film. Like, they're easier to make money. And like, nobody talked about Addams Family when it came out. It kind of came out and no one even noticed. But it's a total bummer because Oscar Isaac is Gomez.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Charlize Theron is Morticia.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's I mean, like, the downside of that is that I would have really loved to have seen those two actors play those characters in real life, because I think that they could have nailed it.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I think that there's still hope. There's still lots of time for Oscar Isaac to play Gomez Addams.
I didn't realize that the guy that plays Gomez Addams, I think like died like not long after. Hey.
Yeah, he made that. He sort of had a bit of a run there of like the two Addams Family movies, and then I think his last movie was Street Fighter. And then,
no, it says his last movie is Down Came a Blackbird, but basically Street Fighter the movie in the same year. So it's like I feel like they were.
And he played M. Bison in Street Fighter, and Street Fighter's not a great film. That movie's got a lot of problems. Mostly that it makes absolutely no sense. But Ming-Na Wen is Chun-Li in that. Yeah, I mean, like, it's a bad movie, but I like it. But I like it because I was like 8.
Nice. I mean, yeah, there's like a nostalgia for stuff like that. Anyways, I'm glad that I watched it because, again, my friends were just watching it because it's their own nostalgia stuff. And then I have my own, like, we watched Hocus Pocus and Nightmare Before Christmas. But it's like I kind of also wanted to watch Beetlejuice. I didn't get a chance to do that.
So I have an opinion on Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't think that it should be watched at Halloween.
I mean, it doesn't. Yes, it's a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas movie. The earliest you can watch Nightmare Before Christmas is November 1st.
Okay. I mean,
that's my opinion. That's my opinion.
I think that an ideal time to watch it is November 1st because it's literally like
that's when it starts.
It starts. Yeah. So it's like, but I was in the mood for watching some Nightmare Before Christmas, so we did. And then we were gonna watch Cabin in the Woods, so we didn't watch any actual scary movies because I'm literally in a cabin in the woods right now and I don't want to watch scary movies. But two people that were here this weekend hadn't watched that movie, and so I was like, oh my gosh, because I really like Cabin in the Woods. We've talked about that one already.
We talked about it on the last episode.
But
or 2 episodes ago.
But anyways, so I just watched spoopy movies. That's all I did this weekend. But I just felt like Addams Family could be shared with this population.
Taking it all the way back to the beginning of this when you were talking to your sister and her being like, spoopy what?
Yeah.
Like being confused by that.
Yeah.
I just need to note that I feel so much pity for people like your sister and my brother who just they probably also have way less anxiety than us, but like they also like the lows are not as low, but the highs are not as high because they don't get to experience like the ridiculous, absurdist stuff the way that we do. I think like they don't. They're so closed off to so much of the world and so many of the great things
the internet brings us.
The internet and pop culture and stuff because they still think that they need to be cool.
But it also was a thing where literally like I'm like, what do you mean? What's spoopy? Like I've never looked into what it is. And
you've never had to. You've never had to explain it to someone. I've never had to
explain it to someone because people just know what you mean. Anyways, I googled it. It's like from a meme, and I'm like, of course, everything's from a meme. But it's like you shouldn't have to explain. It becomes its own thing after a while. So it's like it defies explanation because it's like, why do you? Why do I need to explain that to you? Anyways,
so
it's a special kind. It's a nice lens through which to view the world, though, because it is nice to recognize that not everybody sees the world the same way that you do. And it is one of the things that makes me realize that we get in our own little vacuums. And sometimes it's nice for me to just have a conversation with my sister and realize that there are reasons why it's important to have these conversations over and over and over again into our little echo chamber, because sometimes they'll find their way out and reach other people. So.
Where I get frustrated with it is when people from outside try and I know that most of the time people are well-meaning, but when they try and connect with you by like bringing something up, for example, Crystal's stepdad this evening when I was picking up the girls was like, so hey, there's a new Disney. There's a new Disney out with the new one with the mask that you were wearing the other day.
Aww.
And it's like,
so cute. Come
and it's
on.
like, let me just take that apart piece by piece so that I can understand what you're trying to say to me, which is that the season 2 of The Mandalorian premiered, and it was just like, yeah.
Aww.
I know. It's like, did you watch it? No, he didn't watch it. Are you going to watch it? Well, I don't know. Also, it's like, you know that there's a previous season. It's like, yeah. So now, like, this is the downside is that now he's gonna watch it, and then I'm gonna have to answer a lot of questions that don't have simple answers because Crystal's stepdad Danny he asks questions that have definitive answers. But that he doesn't care to know the answers to. And the best example that I can give of this is that for probably 3 or 4 years, he referred to the Avengers as the Fantastics. Like, he called them the Fantastics. And he would say, did you go to that new movie about the Fantastics? And it was like, he wasn't making fun of me. It wasn't mocking. He just couldn't remember that the Avengers are called the Avengers, no matter how many times I told him. And like, he'll ask me a question, and then like, no matter how brief I try and make the answer, he's lost interest by the time that I get to it, because it's like, some of this stuff can't be explained easily if you haven't watched the other movies. You know what I mean? Like, and like in order to watch the Avengers, he felt that he needed to go back and watch Iron Man. So he went back and he watched Iron Man. No, I'm not done. Just wait.
Okay.
He watched Iron Man until the end of the first act. When Iron Man builds the suit and blasts off and crashes in the dune and then gets rescued.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, now I know how he's Iron Man. And he stopped watching the movie. He just stopped watching the movie. And I was like, did you not like it? And he was like, no, I liked it. So why didn't you finish the movie? Because I just needed to know how he becomes Iron Man. Well, he's not Iron Man yet. That's not, like, that is like the beginning of him. And it's, so, as you can tell, I get very perturbed by talking to muggles about this stuff, because it happens at work as well, where people, like, a new Star Wars movie will come out and people will come up to me, and I've said this before, they'll ask me like, what did you think? And that's why my response is, and I try and make it as unflippant as possible, I like Star Wars. It's like, because you don't actually want to hear what I think about Rise of Skywalker, because I'll talk for 45 minutes about it. And none of these points matter to the ordinary person who goes to see a movie. And then, as I've said in the last few weeks, they just leave afterwards. They sit down, they watch a movie for 2 hours, and then when they're done watching the movie, they're finished. Like that's it.
Yep.
That was the experience.
Yep.
Which I understand, because when I eat dinner, usually when I'm done, I put the dish in the dishwasher, and then that's the end of the meal, right? Like we're done. We don't need to talk about that meal for the next 3 years. But that's not how Star Wars works for me, right? So, People will ask, did you like it? And it's like, yes, or maybe. I don't know. I just say I like Star Wars because it's the easiest way to get out of the conversation without hurting anybody's feelings, my own included. Because because then it inevitably ends up like with the person losing interest in my answer, and then I feel bad, right? And it's like, well, then just don't talk to me about this. I don't ask you about sports, like if I don't care to hear the answer. Because it's the same thing. If you ask somebody about like how the X sports team is doing, and if they're a sports fan, like they'll go on and on and on about, yeah, so and so shouldn't be pitching, or I don't know, whatever, right? And it's like, I don't actually care. Small talk is the worst.
Oh, I will say that my mom did message me today, where she just images from the local Penticton newspaper in which there was an article that Stephen Amell hurt himself on set.
Yeah.
Just without context. She just sent me the images. I'm like, thanks, Mom.
Hurt him? No, he came down with COVID.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
People are saying that he had a back injury.
Oh, maybe that's happened in the last little bit.
I think it's in the last little bit. He also got injured on set.
Okay, because they.
No, I think he also got COVID. Yeah,
he got COVID.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
And was out for like 3 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
And they basically like shot around his parts.
Yeah,
but he's like the lead on this show, so it was tough. But
and so they're saying, I think it's just from a couple days ago. It's like 2 days ago that it's like he's healing from an injury on he's something on heels or something. Anyways,
yeah, it's called heels.
But it's like specifically like people trying to relate. And I'm like, thanks, Mom. Haven't really been following what Stephen Amell is up to, but it's cute that you care. I do like it that like, I don't know. Sometimes it's nice to have people like try to relate to you from like outside of. Anyways, whatever. We can see differently on that point because I think that mine is a little bit more innocuous, whereas yours is a little bit more. Because like I'm a vague, to anybody that doesn't know me, I'm a vague nerd, right? Like I'm a non-threatening nerd, if you will.
You're ashamed of it and you hide it from.
I am not ashamed of it. Come on, Mike. That's not fair.
No, I'm just teasing you.
I feel like definitely in high school, I definitely didn't talk about being a nerd very often.
That's what
that
this
was
is.
Very much
this is why
you're remembering stuff from 20 years ago. But
it's not that it's not that I am remembering it. It is that I am holding that over your head.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. I don't think I would like 18-year-old me. She wasn't the greatest, so.
I would love 18-year-old me. He was pretty cool, but
yeah, I mean, have I articulated this on the podcast before that I like look back towards, because I think about time travel a lot as a general possibility in my life, because that's sometimes just things that, there are weirder things in the world than time. But one of the things that I genuinely think about that kind of makes me sad, but also like really makes me realize how important our friendship is that literally if I was stuck back in time and I was in high school again, the only person that I would actually like be able to relate to as 34-year-old me is you. Like your version, your 17-year-old you. I could get along with 17-year-old you. But I don't think I could get along with 18-year-old me. And also none of my friends when I was in high school knew any. And like my friends, like I still, and granted, this is the thing, is that like I am still friends with a lot of my high school friends. And I could definitely have conversations with them. But there is a vast part of my life that would not be like fully satisfied just dealing with those. And so it's like, it's just, but I do kind of like that there was something where we have an enduring friendship for many reasons, because I didn't really know how much of a nerd I was until many years later. And then it became awesome. I don't know. I also didn't discover the internet until way later in like terms of like community. I feel like there's a lot of people that like really like saw the internet as like an escapism. And I never utilized the internet in ways that I probably should have. I still don't.
I didn't have regular access to the internet until I was 19.
Wow.
Started paying for it myself. Yeah, because it was just not something that my parents paid for. Like they, even still today, it's like they don't really get it. They still don't understand. Like they still watch television shows when they air. like when they're on TV. It's very weird to me, but they record the shows, but then like they're watching them as they're recording, so it's like, why are you recording it if you're just gonna watch it?
I do like that my parents try. My dad tries to understand the internet. He doesn't, but he tries. Like, he at least tries. My poor mom, I felt so bad. I'm sorry. This is my last sort of random story about my parents, but, like, it was really awesome. The Butterfly Affect was in La Femme Film Festival. It was, like, an LA women festival for the Butterfly Affect, and we won for Best Animated Film, which was so cool. But basically for the award ceremony, I was like, hey, they like invited us to this award ceremony. I think it's important that we go. And I sent the link to my mom because I was like, it's free. Like, anybody can watch. You don't have to be like part of the festival. And I just felt so bad because she spent 45 minutes trying to get into the link for the thing. And she connected like 5 minutes after our category had been announced and we had done our speech. And I just was like, Mom, I told you not to worry about it if you couldn't get in after like 10 minutes. Like, don't spend 40 minutes trying to access this thing. And I just felt so bad because you're so helpless when you're far away. And I'm like, I can't help you, Mom. Like, here's the app link. Like, you do what you're going to do, but I can't, like, and it just sucks because it's like she figured it out eventually, but it's like, I don't know. Like, you know this about yourself. Try to connect early. Like, anyways, that's my parents. They try. My grandma's really good at the internet. I don't know. My grandma is really good at the internet. She is always one of the first people to sort of like comment or like refollow or repost stuff that's important that I post on my Facebook. Like, she seems to pick it out and know. Like, I posted something about a film festival we were in, and like within like 30 minutes she had already like reposted the film festival like on her own account and stuff. Anyways, it's good. My grandma's a dope lady. She's sweet.
That's good. Mm-hmm. I don't just as you were talking about that, I realized I don't have any grandparents left. I do. My grandma is still alive, but nobody's home. So, it's like I don't think that she ever even really understood what I did for a living. Because it's such a foreign concept, building websites.
Fair.
But anyways, on that super depressing note, do you want to talk about The Mandalorian? Let's talk about it.
Can we talk just exclusively about Timothy Olyphant for like the next half hour?
I mean, that's basically all there is to talk about in it, because like what else happened? No, the premiere happened, and it is some of the best Star Wars content in years. It's one of the best things that Disney has done since they got the rights.
It's just so fun. Like, what a fun show that is exciting, and it's like it's just a story about a dude that has this baby Yoda and goes around and helps people because he's on a mission to take this baby back. Like, I don't know. And then it's like this guy's being like, I have a hard time in my town, can you help me out? And the guy goes, sure, in exchange for this thing. Like, that's like straight up the whole, I just love it.
Yeah, he was about to murder him in pretty lukewarm blood about 5 seconds before that, but yeah, he does like, turn pretty quick and do the right thing, but because
he does the right thing. And it's
I love the moment where it's like we're gonna do this in front of the kid, and he's like, he's seen worse, and like Timothy Olyphant's response is like, okay then, all right, I guess. But
he gets it, right? Okay, so the saddest part about this, I was watching it with my friends here on Friday, which was awesome, and we were all like really into it. But like, they didn't know who Timothy Olyphant was, and it made me really sad. And then I was like, you guys, don't you watch The Good Place? And they're like, yeah, we watch The Good Place. And I was like, there's a whole scene with Timothy Olyphant in it in which he plays himself, and like, we don't remember it. So then, you know what the reference that they got? The reference that they got is that he's also in The Office, and he goes on a date with Pam and then doesn't call her back, and they're like, oh yeah, that guy. And I was like, what? How is that what you know him from? But like, honestly, like, I know him from like this stuff where it's like somebody posted this. It's like the Western cinematic universe of Timothy Olyphant, in which he just plays like
The same guy.
Tropes.
Yeah.
The same guy.
Yeah.
And it's so great because for so long, I thought that Justified and Deadwood was the same show because it kept just showing me pictures of Timothy Olyphant as a cowboy. And so I was like...
But Deadwood takes place in like the 1800s and...
He's still a cowboy.
Yeah, Justified is modern.
I didn't find that out until literally Friday when I Googled it so that I could figure out why I thought that he was in all of these. Because I didn't watch both of those. It's not like I seek out Westerns to go watch. But I will now. I feel like I want to watch it just for him because he's just so great.
Justified's one of those ones that's like been on my list since it started because I do love him so much. He was rumored to be in the running for Doctor Strange back in the day.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it was like the names that were being thrown around were Timothy Olyphant, Ewan McGregor, and then Benedict Cumberbatch started to like surface. And obviously we know how that turned out, but I think he would have been an excellent Doctor Strange. I think it would have been really fun to see him alongside Robert Downey Jr., but also at the same time, a little bit too much of the same energy.
I was going to say, they have the same energy. That's probably why they didn't choose him. Yeah, for
no,
sure.
I think it's absolutely why they didn't choose him. It bodes well for him, especially now that he's officially in the Disney stable, being in Star Wars.
Well, and also just like kicking it out of the park. Killing it? What is the word that I'm trying to say? He just did such a good job in the Mandalorian.
He crushes it. He crushes it. So that character existed before this episode of The Mandalorian. The character Cobb Vanth. He comes from a book series called Star Wars Aftermath.
Oh.
There are 3 of them. It's a trilogy, and he's not a main character in those books. There are some vignettes, like some sort of like asides, in between chapters, where it's like, okay, we have our main story with our main characters. And then every once in a while, because Aftermath is the first thing that was published post Disney. I'm not the first thing that was published post Disney, but the first thing after Return of the Jedi, after the Disney purchase, and it was published in the lead up to The Force Awakens. So there are these like little vignettes throughout the books that give you hints at what has been happening in the galaxy. One of those things is, first of all, we're going to talk about this episode of The Mandalorian. If you haven't watched it by now, I don't know why you listen to me talk about anything on the internet. We're not friends. I don't like you. You can stop listening. I don't think I'm going to alienate any of our listeners by saying that because...
You alienated me a little bit. I don't know.
Because
sometimes I just don't get around to watching stuff as fast as you do.
Oh, this is not one of those things that you can screw around with. We're going to talk about The Mandalorian, and I'm not going to avoid spoilers.
Okay.
So in the Aftermath books, it's very, very clearly implied. It's not explicit, but it is implied that Boba Fett is still alive, but also that somebody else has his armor. And in fact, it's confusing because it's implied that maybe multiple people have his armor or multiple people have had his armor. So there might be, so this is, and because I think this will all be pertinent to The Mandalorian going forward. I don't think this is the last time that we'll see this character this season. I think that we're coming back to Tatooine at some point. I say that because next week, like this coming week's episode, we're not on Tatooine anymore. So when Mando drives off back towards his ship, he leaves Tatooine and goes to another planet. There's no, like, maybe we'll see him getting on his ship and leaving, but I doubt it. I think that we're going to start wherever he is next. But showing Boba, and some people are going to tell you that, like, oh, people are speculating that that's Boba. That's Boba Fett. There's no way that Tamura Morrison at the end of that episode is not Boba Fett. He's not a different clone. He's not another character. He's Boba Fett.
Because it's like, the beautiful part of that is that you had a Mandalorian that wasn't actually a Mandalorian, but then you actually did have a Mandalorian in that episode.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Oh.
Boba Fett's not a Mandalorian.
Oh.
First off, Jango Fett was exiled from the Mandalorian culture long before he became the clone template, and Boba's not he's a clone. He's not genetic. Like he's not. I don't know. Like there's a weird thing there of like, yeah, he's a clone of somebody who is of Mandalorian descent, but like, what is he? He's a clone.
But
right?
isn't that the whole thing with the current Mandalorian? What's the current Mandalorian's name? What's the Mandalorian's name?
Yeah.
Din. But is that like he's also not?
Yes,
like,
but there's a difference between somebody who takes on the creed and somebody who actively goes against the Mandalorian way, and Boba Fett does not follow the Mandalorian way. Okay. So there's an interesting dynamic there of, and I think this is one of the things that's gonna come back is that Cobb Vanth, as much as he takes the helmet off, and obviously like it instantly pisses off Din, like he's like, excuse me, like, right. And it's the first sign that like, oh, Cobb's not a Mandalorian. It doesn't mean that Cobb can't become a Mandalorian, right? Like if he were to take up the creed, then he could become a Mandalorian. He could train and he could follow that way, right? Boba isn't and doesn't and will not, and it's going to be an interesting encounter when these two characters cross paths, because Boba Fett is, in terms of the like our experience of discovering Mandalorians, he's the first one, right? He's the prototypical Mandalorian, except that as the story of Mandalore has developed over the years, we've discovered that actually Mandalore is a much more complex culture than what was presented in the character of Boba Fett, both in the movies and in expanded universe material, right? It's way more complicated. And in fact, there's a whole pacifist side to Mandalore. There are people who are just straight up warriors, but that live by like a strict honor code that Boba doesn't follow. And then there are people who fall in between that are both artists and warriors, like they're pacifist, artist, warrior, and they're not mercenaries, right? And Din is a bounty hunter, but he's not a mercenary, right?
Okay.
He hunts bounties, but he's not just a gun for hire, right? Like you can't just get him to like go murder somebody. He's not an assassin. He's not a mercenary.
Well,
right?
I feel like if you manipulate him enough.
I mean, like if push comes to shove, he will kill if he has to. But especially over the course of the first season, one of the things is that you see him going away from that lifestyle.
No, he doesn't. But he sets it up so that somebody else will kill him. Like straight up in the beginning of this episode, right? He like leaves that dude to die.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. He's not his moral code is not altogether. He's not a Jedi. Right, so he doesn't have to like he doesn't have to worry about the light side or the dark side, but at the same time, that character sealed his own fate, right?
Yeah.
Not Boba. Din gave him the option. He was like, "You can just tell me," and he was like, "No, we're gonna do this." And he's like, "Okay, then everybody in this room's gonna die." Like he was basically like he warned him of like you don't push this, because if you push this, there's only one way that it turns out. And by the end of it, it's like, yeah, but that there's also, in terms of like from a storytelling perspective and from like the mythic perspective, that character, like he got what he deserved, right? Like that character, if you listen to the backstory there, like he's been luring in Mandalorians, murdering them and taking their Beskar to sell it.
Yeah.
Right? Like he
the
absolutely
bad guy, I get it.
Yeah, like he absolutely it's what Din did wasn't revenge, it was justice, right? By the Mandalorian code, right? Like by the code that he lives his life by. That was a totally just action. It was an execution for sure. Like 100%. Like he knew that guy was going to die the second he shot that light. But he was justified in doing it because if he allowed him to live, he would have just continued killing Mandalorians, who are at this point like an endangered species sort of thing, right? So from a moral perspective, he's in the clear. But like Boba is different. Like Boba, if you told Boba go kill that guy, here's however many credits, he'd do it. Like no questions asked, right? Like okay, like he doesn't have a moral code, and he's also on top of that, he's kind of a douchebag. Like if you go back into Clone Wars and you see Boba immediately after Attack of the Clones, but like between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, he's a little juvenile delinquent douchebag. Like he's not a likable character in those stories. And obviously there's a lot of growth between then and the adult that we see in Empire, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't think he would have changed that much. So it's going to be interesting to see that character come back, and my hope is that when we see that character come back, that we're going to actually see Din return the armor to Cobb, because if you look at everything that they did throughout the episode.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. That would be nice.
I think that Cobb earned the right to wear the armor. And I think that especially like, cause at the end when he says like, I hope we cross paths again, if they do cross paths again and it involves Boba and Cobb stands up against Boba on Din's side, right, he'll have thrown in with the Mandalorians, right?
Interesting.
At which point it's like, if you want to, you can join us. You can become a Mandalorian.
Right. Okay.
And I, for one, would love to see that. I would love to see Cobb Vanth become because he is a very heroic character. Like he does it not for, like, there's a little bit of it. Obviously, he's kind of in it for the glory, but and for the perks of being the marshal, but like
mostly he just wanted to protect his, like,
he's protecting this little town. Yeah. Right? No, it's not like he's living in the lap of luxury. It's still a rough life that he's living, but he's doing it because it's the right thing to do. So he is very much like he has the heart of a hero. So there's an element there that I would love to see that come back, and that in the same way that we saw in the first season, he meets these characters, and then at the end of the season he has to gather his posse in order to win the day, right? And and ultimately like that community that he forms around him is what does allow him to defeat Moff Gideon, right? And get away with the child. So I think that we'll see that. We haven't even talked about the fact that what they're fighting is a crate dragon. It's basically Godzilla.
It's great.
And what we see of it is maybe 1/10 of the actual creature. So like you could be forgiven for mistaking that thing for a sandworm and thinking that it is just a mouth and a body, right? Like a worm, right?
Yep.
But if recent canon history indicates, that thing is about 10 times as big as what we saw, and has 10 legs, and most of it, like it has a very, very, very long neck, but then a long body with a tail and 2 like forearms and then 8 legs. And yeah, so we saw the top of it and not really the whole thing. And they fought that thing, and it was ridiculous. And if Cobb weren't a hero, he would have turned tail at some point, right? And he doesn't. He sticks by Mando the whole time. The only reason that he's not there at the very end of the fight is that Mando hits the jetpack and he
makes him go away.
Moves him out of the way. But the biggest thing to me that indicates that that he's a hero and that he's a character worth revisiting is the fruit thing that they drink, that the sand people drink.
That he then at the end of it he drinks it.
At the end of it he drinks it.
That was very on purpose,
right? And it's like, it's this is why I love this show so much, is that because of the nature of the Mandalorian himself, of Din Djarin, and the fact that it's a mask and we don't see his face, so much of what the show says is unsaid.
Yeah.
It's all symbolism. It's all action speaking louder than words. And that is like, there's this character growth that happens over the course of the episode that is exemplified in it stinks and then he throws it. And at the end of it, he takes it and he drinks it and doesn't say a thing. Yeah. Right.
And he doesn't enjoy it, right? It's not like he's drinking it because he wants to. He literally is just like, it's his growth. Yeah.
Yeah. And it shows that there's hope for Tatooine as a community. With Cobb Vanth as a representative, as a leader, for the colonizers, right? There's actually hope that this indigenous group and this colony can actually learn to coexist. And if you went back to the way that Tuskens are referred to in A New Hope when we first see them, or even going back into the prequel trilogy when we see them shooting at the pod race, like they're depicted generally as savages, right? Like I did my quote fingers.
But I was talking about the colonizer, even the colonizational words around them, right? Because they're Tusken Raiders and Sand People, right? Where it's like, I don't know.
I know, and it's I do my best not to use the term Sand People because it is a derogatory term in universe. Like it's meant to be, and so it's like whenever that sort of gets used, I have a joke that I used to say, which I don't know if I came up with it. I can't find a source for it, so I think I might have actually made it up. But if somebody can actually give me the source on it, then I am totally willing to concede that I didn't come up with this myself. But whenever somebody says the Sand People, I go, excuse me, please, Tusken Americans. But I actually talked to on Twitter John Jackson Miller, I think is the author. He wrote the Kenobi novel, which is about Obi-Wan in the like year after he's come to Tatooine, after he's delivered Luke to Owen and Beru, right? So right after Revenge of the Sith. And there's a bunch of it where he interacts with the Tuskens and essentially like stops a war between an outpost and a group of Tuskens. And something was coming up about, I think it might have been around Mandalorian last season, and I was writing something and I was like, what, like, I wonder if they have a word in their language for their people, because if they do, I want to start using that instead of using the term Tusken Raiders, because Tusken Raiders is better than Sand People, but how much better?
Yeah.
And he responded to my tweet. I was like, if anybody knows, it's gonna be John Jackson Miller, because he obviously would have had to research it for his book. And he responded and was like, the story is actually that they got the name. The nomenclature Tusken Raider comes from the fact that like way back, like thousands of years ago, before A New Hope, they overran Fort Tusken, and so they were given that name, like, the Tusken Raiders. Interesting. And so they actually, like, they prefer to be called Tusken Raiders because it's a symbol of their fight against colonizers, like against their oppressors. So they actually, like, they own it as like we're the Tusken Raiders and you better be afraid of us because this is our planet, not yours. Right. So just like sort of like in universe backstory, to sort of like give an idea of what their culture is like. But I love the idea that what we see him, like, I don't even think that Din is doing this on purpose. It's just in his nature, because he's seen so much of the galaxy and he's experienced so many things, and because he's a foundling and all of that, because he can communicate with the Tuskens and he can communicate with in basic with everybody else, he's able to essentially like broker a peace
Right.
that could turn into like a lasting thing. Like who knows what this evolves to 100 years down the road, right?
Right.
Because this could be the thing, like the moment where it's like, oh, actually, like these people can get along, right?
Right.
I love that like his growth is being passed on to these other communities as he goes through, like passes through their lives, because we kind of saw that a little bit in a different direction with the episode Sanctuary in the first season, where he goes to Sorgan and they hire him to defend them against the raiders, and he actually ends up like teaching them to defend themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which I love that. I do like that episode.
So it's like everywhere he goes, he kind of and what's the name of the outpost? I can't remember the town that he gets the original bounty in, right? It's slipping my mind right now, but Navarro. He leaves Navarro like why can't I think of any of the names right now? Carl Weathers' character, the guy that gives him the bounty, Grief Karga. He literally says like you've basically like you've gotten rid of the Imperials, like it's like the town is better than it's ever been. Like maybe now we can actually make something of this.
Oh yeah.
And the same with like when he comes to retrieve the child in the first place. When he leaves there, Queel is like, thank you for restoring peace to my valley. It's like there's a pattern of everywhere Din goes, he actually leaves it better than how he found it. It's really interesting because I don't like, it's not something that I think that we see in a lot of modern stories, but it is a very like it's almost like an Arthurian component. Like it's a very like I don't know, like an old English like a Chaucer knight type of thing, right? It's like and it's very Western as well, where it's like the stranger comes into town and by the time that he leaves, these resolve their problems. But he's just like the shiny armor, the Western part, like it all kind of combines into one big mythic story surrounding him. But it's nice to have a story about a character who actually, I don't know, like some the good stuff actually happens. It's not the end of The Mandalorian is not going to be him all by himself and the love of his life has faded into non-existence and then burying his mentor's weapons in the sand. You know, like because the end of Rise of Skywalker is such a bummer.
Yeah.
Like she's alone. Like it's like she's not alone because she still has her friends. But she is like she found this person and then immediately loses him, and has no mentors left and like is just on her own and has to figure out saving the galaxy by herself. Yeah, I don't like that's not where this story is going to end. I think that this story is very much going to end with Mandalore restored and building back, and that's it's nice to have. George Lucas said like these stories need to be hopeful. They're stories for children, right? Like that, the lesson to be learned from all of it. If you look at the end of the stories that he told, from Phantom Menace to the end of Return of the Jedi, it's like the end of Return of the Jedi is very hopeful. It's very like they did it. They defeated the bad guys, and it's very clear from the last shot of that movie that everything's going to be okay. And then in order to have a sequel trilogy, everything had to not be okay. But it was okay for a while. It was okay for 30 years, kind of in a way.
But I'm pleased that this is the future. What a nice positive episode we've had today, Mike.
Is it? Was it?
I'm very pleased to just be able to talk about some nerdy things. Mostly I'm just trying to wrap it up because I'm tired now.
Yeah.
Daylight savings has totally messed with my brain.
Oh, totally. Toast. I'm toast too. And you can probably hear it in my voice. But yeah, with the way that the recording schedule is for Faster, More Intense and Thunderquack, this is going to be the first show that I do every week after watching The Mandalorian on Fridays. So you guys can expect that I'll talk a lot about The Mandalorian. But the conversation that I'll have with my co-hosts on Faster, More Intense every week will be different than the kind of conversation that I have with you, because we're gonna get into like the nitty gritty of all of the different times that crate dragons have been mentioned in Star Wars, and like seeing it for the first time. For you, I think it's like were you aware of a crate dragon before this?
I was
story?
Not aware of a crate dragon before the story, because I'm a regular human being who's just sorry, that was so mean. But yes. Yes.
The first instance of a crate dragon is actually from A New Hope. It's you remember when 3PO walks off after like telling R2 to
there's a big skeleton.
There's the big skeleton. Yeah, that's a crate dragon. That's a crate dragon.
Yeah. There you go. You know what? Now I want to say that somebody has once told me that was a crate dragon skeleton, and I went, that's an indifferent piece of information.
That doesn't affect anything.
I don't need to store that in my brain. But no, it makes sense.
Some people might tell you that that's actually the crate dragon that Obi-Wan Kenobi defeated.
Ooh,
but
there you go. Sure.
That's not necessarily true. I don't think that Obi-Wan Kenobi would kill a crate dragon. But anyways, is that it? That's it?
I think that's it. I think that's all. That's all for me today. I'd like to. Yeah, there's a piece to this beautiful like world in which I'm talking to you from the past and from the future. It's just like beautiful that I know that people will not hear this till Friday, and some people will hear it on Tuesday. And anyways, I hope that you're staying safe, drinking lots of water, existing in the world in a way that makes you feel content and make the world a better place and kinder
and we sincerely hope that he's not he'll still be the president until January. Yeah. That's the other piece of bad news that I don't think people think about. But he won't be. The damage he can do will be limited. Yeah. in the next couple of months. So, let's hope that that's the case. Let's hope that that's where we find ourselves when we record next week. That we have good news to talk about. But I hope everybody is staying safe. I hope everybody is taking care of themselves. If you're listening to this on Tuesday in the midst of everything else that's happening, remember to take care of yourself. Remember that it's actually more important that you are okay in the moment than that you are up to date on the news, because it's not going anywhere. This is going to be reality for the foreseeable future. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, take breaks from social media. That's the important part. That's just good advice in general, I think, is to take breaks from social. Hopefully by the time we come back, we've got more positive things to talk about. But if we don't, we'll still have Star Wars and other geeky stuff to talk about. So, cool. Well, thank you for listening, everybody, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Stay safe, everybody. Wash your hands and be kind to one another.
Yeah, don't forget, there's still a pandemic out there, okay?
Yep, that as well.
Jeez.
Remember that part? The stay safe is different for tomorrow than it is. Ugh.
Follow the Thunderquack Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching the Thunderquack Podcast. You can support us in 3 ways. First, by heading to the podcast service of your choice and leaving a rating and review. Second, by going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merch from your favorite podcasts. And last but not least, by heading to patreon.com/thunderquack to kick in with your monthly pledge of support and get cool rewards like early access, ad-free episodes, and extended episodes. The Thunderquack Podcast is the official podcast of thunderquack.com. Head to thunderquack.com to discover more great